No, that's a great question, and that comes up sometimes as we're reading through the text, especially as we are comparing the four gospels side by side. We have to remember, yes, they are written by the Holy Spirit, but it's like if I write something in different pens, it's going to have different colors of ink sometimes. Each gospel is going to have its own flavor, and that flavor is going to be impacted by the author. Um, and so, as Matthew is giving his eyewitness testimony, he is focused on certain things, and those are things that God has brought into his mind. Those are also things that he is writing naturally. God is giving him remembrance, but he is also writing as an author. And as he's doing so, he is uh, he is writing with certain emphases. Mark, on the other hand, is writing with other emphases. And so as you are comparing these gospel accounts, they are going to focus on certain things. Sometimes they're focusing on the things that uh, are assumed, uh, or they are writing in a way where they are assuming that the audience is aware of the previous information. Let's put it that way. I think that's a little bit clearer. And so Matthew, I believe the consensus of church history is that Matthew was written first. Mark was written afterward, although there are some people who disagree. They think that Mark, because it's a shorter gospel, was written first. It was actually written afterward. I actually think it was written after Luke also. And it's a combination, or it's a kind of a gleaning of Matthew and Luke. And that's how we get Mark. What is happening, though, as they're giving their reports, is that they are focused on perhaps different individuals. And so when we give reports today, we want to know, especially in police reports, how many people were there, what were they doing, what were they saying. We want to know all the particulars. That is not necessarily the focus of ancient writers. Their focus is more on giving you the sense of what happened. So when Mark says that there are, or excuse me, when Matthew says there are two men who are demon possessed, and Mark tells us there's one man, uh, are they necessarily disagreeing with one another? No, especially since Mark is written at a time when the church has already had Matthew. Mark's not coming by and saying, well, actually, it was one man. What Mark is doing is he's focusing on the one man who was most prominent in the account. And so he talks about the guy who did the talking. So Jesus is talking to the men, but there's one man who's responding. And that's typically what's happening there. And it's the same thing with the women at the tomb. As the women go to the tomb, we have differing accounts of, okay, was it an angel, was it two angels, where were they? um, Keep in mind too that we have different times that are being highlighted in these gospels, and so the gospel writers are highlighting either the number of angels, or that there were angels plural present, or they're highlighting the fact that one of the angels is doing the talking. These are not necessarily irreconcilable reports, uh, where we would say, okay, one person is saying there are two angels, the other person is saying, no, there's only one angel. We don't see that there's this disagreement happening. Rather, we see that one account is focusing on the person that was talking. And if we were to do a kind of forensic interview, where we would follow up and say, now, wait a minute, you said that there was one angel at the tomb, um, but we heard that there was a second angel. Can you confirm whether it was one angel or two angels? Mark would probably say, well, yeah, there were two angels. Um, but I chose to simply talk about the one that did the talking. And so those aren't necessarily contradictions in the text, especially since Mark is being written at a time and place where he knows that readers have already read Matthew. He's just focusing on the one angel. And the best I can tell you with that is that in the ancient world, that kind of testimony would have been more readily received than it is in our day and age, where we have a different sense of evidence, where we would like to see, okay, if we were writing a autobiography, or excuse me, not an autobiography, a biography of the events, and we want to have all the details down. We would report exactly how many angels were there, and we would say which of the angels were doing the talking, and that's because that's where our sense of standards are today. That just wasn't quite the sense of standards in an Eastern culture, especially not in the first century. And that's just the way that stories were told back